Hi class, this is the last of my videos explaining how to develop longer papers. At this point, we have a lot of stuff at our disposal. We have all your invention activities, we have the 3X strategy, you know how to write narratives, you have hopefully by now written your thesis statement, we have various development activities, and of course your research that you need to add. So we need to find a way to take all of these pieces and put them together, which is the biggest challenge of this class and this paper. So let's see. Come on, go forward. There we go. So remember this? We did the brainstorming longer papers a couple weeks ago. I'm going to go through it really quickly just to remind you. So we begin with our own stories. Then we look for themes that unite and are related to all those stories. Then we found something that all of those themes have in common that we can use to sort of pull it together. Then we explore the relationship between those main themes and the sub-themes. How do they interact with each other? We organized our examples under those various sub-themes. And then we got to the developing longer papers part where we started actually putting making some draft work happen. So as I had said, we want to divide our paper into small subtopics. Oops, I thought I had another slide there. So we're using that bird by bird concept to build the length by dealing with one small bit at a time. So we talked about organizing your subtopics so that we have identity and as your main theme, your specific theme of your paper. Then the sub-themes, my care of students' well-being, care of student success, and care for the subject matter. I organized my personal examples underneath the various sub-themes. I organized all of my research under the various sub-themes. And now we're to the new stuff now after all of that review. So what I recommend doing at this point, if you haven't done it already, is to look through those sub-themes and try to create a sentence that brings them all together, perhaps in the X is Y because A, B, and C sort of setup. Mine is a little different. I did teaching allows me to express the things I value most highly. Care for, and that's going to be the same thing that connects all the pieces below. My students' well-being and success, as well as for the subject matter of English, which I adore. So if you look at each of the pieces, they're in different colors, and that will help me kind of keep track of all of the different ideas that I'm trying to bring together under this one big heading. And I'll show you a little bit more about what that looks like. So with the 3X strategy, this should be, you should be able to start filling in the blanks at this point. So to summarize what it may look like on the 3X, we may have a thesis that sounds like, to me, being an X, whatever your identity is, means A, B, and C. And then each piece of your paper goes, the A connects and has an exposition, example, and explanation for it. The B has all three of those, and C has all three of those. And so from a bird's eye view of what my paper looks like, I have my introduction and conclusion in these kind of bluish colors, and then the internal paragraphs are all in the various 3 sections that I've outlined. So care for student well-being in yellow, care for student success in red, and care for the subject matter of English in green. And within each of those, I've identified exposition and also example, and I started thinking through explanation. So if you want to look at the outline, I have the HTML here, but I'll put that in the comment on YouTube as well. So to look through this, the first section, we have you can see the color coding that I've done. The section is in yellow and the exposition red, example blue, explanation green. Notice that there's a yellow line down the middle. I'm thinking as I'm looking at this that each of these can be about a paragraph each. So the entire section on care for student well-being is being chunked down once again into 2 smaller paragraphs where we're dealing with the same topic but in a couple of different ways. So here you can kind of see more specifically. In my 3X, I haven't gone through and done a bunch of quote sandwiches or anything yet, but I have started thinking through how I can use the examples and explain my examples in terms of the various main themes that I'm bringing up. Here's the section 1, second paragraph where I have my exposition. One thing to notice here is that my exposition is mostly a transition, because if you look here, I've already kind of identified that main theme. This one is about my experiences, so it sort of indicates that we're continuing the same theme again. Again, that you'll notice that even here on my section 2, I'm thinking about transitioning from one section to the next. This section has, similar to the previous one, 2 sections that I'll divide into at least 2 paragraphs. It might be more. So in fact, I think this story that I tell here and that's in, or no, the story here in blue, that one ended up being a couple paragraphs just on its own. So none of this is perfect. Sometimes you may have a whole paragraph of exposition or a whole paragraph of example, but thinking about it in those terms should help you build the paper together. More examples. It's a blending. The example is a blending of my research and my own experiences. Here's my third example. Notice how right here I copied and pasted a huge quote. I'm not going to use that entire quote in the final draft, but I put the whole thing here, copied and pasted it so that I would have it. And then I even wrote down a note for myself that says this needs to be cut down and summarized. So as you're working on your 3X, you can totally do this. It's for you. It's not for me. Final paper's for me. But for you at this point, it's okay if you have big chunks of quotation. But that's too much for final paper, by the way. Oh, and here I forgot I zoomed in so you can see a little bit more. It's such a good thing. It's really hard. I did end up finding a way to cut it down, but it was hard. So exposition, example, explanation. And notice how I started, I jumped right into the body paragraphs. I decided to leave this introductory paragraph for the end because introductions are hard. That's just something to notice about how we do this. And a lot of times I wait to do my thesis until the end. I might know the main pieces that go into my thesis, but I might wait till the end to finally solidify it. Something interesting that you may notice with this one is that we usually think of exposition at the top, example in the middle, explanation at the bottom. Actually, for my introduction, I started with it's in blue, so it's an example, so it's my story. And then my explanation happens in the middle as I transition from the story into my thesis, and the thesis is my exposition. So it's kind of turned around for my final paragraph, or for my opening paragraph. Just an interesting note there. For my conclusion, I talk about wanting to connect my teaching identity to my identity in general. I think I've mentioned this before, but I am a fan of using your conclusion as an idea, opportunity to do something new, not necessarily restate everything you've already said. So that's what I would recommend doing here is how does the little piece of your identity that you've written about connect to the bigger picture of who you are? That's a good way to conclude this paper. There's my Works Cited page, and I have a full draft with all the elements. I had a little blurb there. I have a full draft of my paper. Again, I'll put a link to that in the YouTube comment where you can see all the different pieces of exposition, example, and explanation chunked out so you can kind of see how these various chunks work together. I find that helpful for me to think about it in those terms. And I think that's my last slide. So I hope this was helpful. It's kind of a long one. I apologize for that. That's what happens when you don't script it, by the way. Yeah, good luck on your writing, and I will see you later.